Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to our live session on the role of digital identity verification in tomorrow's online economy. My name is François Vis, and I'm the general manager of IDV at checkout.com. And I'm very excited to be joined by Maxime Ambersin. Hello, Maxime, who is senior director.
Hello, everybody.
Maxime,
good afternoon, everybody. Super excited to be. Oh, sorry. Sorry to interrupt.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm like super excited to be here. As you were saying, so Maxime Ambersin from Docusign. I'm in charge of all the identity space here and everything about the trust pillar within Docusign. I think it's a super interesting topic that is a lot of news recently, and so I'm like super excited to spend a couple of time with you discussing about that and see how that will like disrupt the market and how we do business and agreement transaction online in the very near future. So like super happy to be there.
Cool. So indeed, IDV is an important part of online economy and digital transaction in itself, but it's also a super important part of the Docusign cloud agreement platform. We have a partnership on some of your IDV needs. Could you explain a little bit what is our partnership and why you chose to work with Checkout IDV?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's always. I mean, in Docusign, we want to make sure that we can power any type of agreement everywhere around the world, and we want to deliver the highest level of trust with the lowest level of friction on the flow. We do believe it's important for our customers to be able to do like secure agreement business online. Back in those days, and we are like, for that, we are building product out of, an R&D team, which is based in Paris to support the EMEA market and like more globally, like ID verification around the world. Back in those days, in order to perform, qualified electronic signature, so the highest level of trust of our agreement, we had to go through what we call the video identification process. That was, super helpful, when nothing else was actually available to do remote identification. But now that we have like AI-powered solution and that are available on the market, we try to evaluate who will be the best one to actually support us and make sure we can go to market for our qualified electronic offering. And, by doing the assessment, Hubble was at that time, Hubble was the best solution before it got acquired by checkout.com. And we say, well, that's a great idea to actually partner together and to make sure that for the highest level of trust, we can actually leverage your identification process and making sure we can comply to the utmost level of regulation. I think it started there. Now we are live. We are live with a product. We are live with reusable identity through a wallet. Super happy with the partnership and the success of the product. I think we see a lot of people, and a lot of traction for those products, especially in continental Europe. And so that's how it started, and that I have to say that's how it was actually successful.
Yes. Indeed. And just to give a little bit of context for people who are not super familiar with identity verification, before Checkout IDV, for the qualified electronic signature, you had to do what you call the video or remote identity verification. And it was two humans interacting together through a live video chat, just like we are doing today. And in fact, maybe we can go to the basics. What is an identity verification in the online world? Well, it's just as in real life, it's the action of verifying an ID, a piece of ID that has been printed by a government, assess that this piece of ID is genuine, has the right security features, it's an original copy, it's not a forged one, and assess on the other end that the person behind the screen who presents the ID is an actual person and corresponds to the picture that is printed on the ID document. So you really have three things to do when you do an online identity verification. One, you have to check the authenticity of the state-issued ID document or passport. Second, you have to check that the person behind the screen is live and is an actual person willing to share their ID. And third, you have to check that this is a legitimate owner of the of the document, and that the person is not using an idea which is not theirs. And basically, when you talk about trust, you have to do this in a way that is as reliable as a face-to-face, because all the things that you want to do in contracting or in agreement or in, I don't know, in the digital economy in general, you want it to be as secured as in real life. And to be as secure as in real life, you need to provide some guarantees in terms of reliability. And that's why trust service providers and trusted identity verification providers work together to really inject a level of trust and of confidence that is as reliable as a face-to-face in real life, and that also, on the other hand, will be, from a legal standpoint, recognized as reliable as a face-to-face. What do you think about the evolution in terms of, bringing face-to-face equivalent in the digital world? Where do you see Docusign working on this, and what does identity mean for you on your platform?
Well, I mean, as you know, we are a platform to power agreements. So ultimately, we want to make sure that any participant that is connected to this platform is actually with the highest level of trust. So depending on what is your actual use case, you may want to go for a face-to-face equivalent of an identity, or you may want to do something which has a little bit less friction and therefore a little bit less trust. And I think that's where the topic is about. Is if you think about that, right now we see more and more solutions to perform ID verification online. And for a way wider variety of use cases. It actually started mostly with onboarding use case. I want to onboard someone on a service. I want to have a new employee joining my company. Or I want to gather a high-level consent of someone for a super secure transaction. But at the end of the day, when you do that and you have this high level of face-to-face interaction to have that grade of ID verification, then you want to leverage that over time. And you have more and more of our customers that actually leverage precedent identification that has been done in order to do subsequent transaction. Because the last thing you want is to have a recurring trusted customers that has to go through a frictionful flow all the time, like every single time. And I think that's where you see the trend evolving. If you think about that, back in those days, 5-6 years ago, you had to go to your post office in order to do your ID verification first. You get a token, and then you are using this token to show who you are. Now you can do that from your living room just by taking a picture and a small video of yourself in your couch watching TV, no problem at all. But even that, it's great, better, but it can even be easier and better and have even more use case when we will be able to actually reuse that. That's something that we are trying to accomplish as well, because we believe that right now, if you still have this, level of convenience and level of trust and the drawback between the two and the balance between the two that you always have to manage, well, it will always be, okay, which kind of identification I want to do for which kind of transaction. Our conviction is in the future that will disappear. People will want to have both trust and convenience. There is no 2 or 3 type of ID document you have in your hands. If you go to a hotel and someone asks you to see your ID, it's either you see it and it's okay, or it's not okay and you don't have it and that's it. There is no I have multiple level of identity. It tends to be in the physical world black or white, and it tends to be it's going. Our conviction is going to be black or white as well in the digital world. However, what we see is, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that as well, François, because you have also a lot of experience on that, is we also see a world which is changing digitally because there is more and more fraud happening online. And with this new solution that the one we are using based on AI component to verify the document and doing the selfie, it's interesting to see how much level of fraud do we see happening more on those online transactions compared to the past. So maybe you have some thought of that as well on your side, François.
Yes, definitely. First, I totally agree with you. at the end of the day, the online world is going to look very like to the offline world. It's going to be black or white, and it's going to be also convenient. Let's say it's super easy in the offline world to show your ID, and that's it. And that's what we are aiming at, and that's what the ecosystem is aiming at. But first, to be able to reach this point where you don't have to make a trade-off anymore between reliability and user experience, you have to be aware of all the frauds that occur, and basically it's super interesting how the level of reliability of verifying IDs have evolved over time, as well as it's super interesting to see how the sophistication of frauds have evolved over time as well. Back in the early days, I would say 8 years ago, verifying an ID online, there was no standard, and it was just, okay, I drop you a scan of my ID document, and that's basically it. So of course, it leaves room for a lot of super easy frauds. No need to be a sophisticated fraudster to just scan or Photoshop the ID of someone else. And then it went from static picture to, okay, we want a scan, but we also want a selfie or proof of your face to match the two pieces, the person and the ID document. And then we said, okay, it's easy to spoof a face, so we want a live video selfie of your face plus a scan or a picture of your ID document. And then we said, okay, the scan of the ID document is too easy to spoof. You have Photoshop masters that can create hologram on a single picture, so we need video and randomization in order to have really just like in real world, the document glowing, shining, showing holograms, showing to the camera that basically it's plastified and it's an actual copy that you present. And moving forward, you will need to maybe read the chip of the ID document and not just film the ID document. And reading the chip is super secured, and basically there is a physical contact between the copy of the document and the smartphone that reads the chip. So it's going to evolve, and for a good reason. It's because we see that fraudsters are more and more sophisticated. And basically, what took, I would say, a few hours to set up in terms of deepfake of a face, for instance, now takes just a few minutes if you can reach or identify the right softwares. So from hours to minutes, this means that more people are able to attempt to do frauds. And what we have seen in our data is 5 years ago when we launched the IDV, we hardly saw any, there was no deepfake at all, no deepfake attacks. And now they represent still a small share, but it has been multiplied by 10 or 15 basically in the course of 5 years. So there's definitely a sophistication of the fraudsters, and it's kind of a race. And of course, with video, you can video streaming, randomization, AI plus sometimes a human fallback. For the moment, we can cope with the evolution of fraudsters, and we make the setup difficult for a user or fraudster to really spoof our systems. But still, we know that moving forward at some point, reusable IDV wallets will be more secure, provided, and that's a very big condition, provided that when we create it, we are super secure. So you talked about your wallets, you talked about reusable identity. In fact, a wallet and a reusable identity, it's a secured digital form, secured digital certificate of your identity that you can share in a way that is secured through authentication means, not to have to use your physical copy of ID document anymore. But the first time you create it, you have to be super safe. And here, there is a lot of debate moving forward on how do we create these reusable digital identities. And as you said, sometimes you go physically at some place. But what will be interesting is maybe to deep dive on eIDAS, the European regulation, because the European Commission has really pushed very hard to create identity wallets for all European citizens. but the implementation is super hard. You have to have 20 plus countries agree on the standard and the level of securities. A lot of discussions are happening so far. Could you briefly explain us what is the status of the new eIDAS regulation?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. But before we go there, there is one thing that I love about what you were saying, and around the frauders and everything. It's I mean, it is true that you need to have the highest level of trust when you actually create the initial identification, because all the subsequent one will be based on that one. On the other hand, I mean, the 100% totally secure kind of flow, it's not existing, not even in real life. You can have a fake ID in real life as well. And sometimes, it's interesting to see how much people are, inclined to accept a certain level of fraud in their, analogic world, while when they go digital, they don't accept anything at all. It needs to be like 100% bulletproof. So for me, that's where, it's always us, like, being professional in this role to make sure that we manage that as well. Well, obviously, if you create a wallet out of the first identity, then it needs to be super secure, because otherwise you will break the level of trust in the chain of all the subsequent transactions that will be done. And then if you go back to the original one and all is broken, then no one will trust in your solution anymore. And when I mean solution, is whatever the solution is provided, and whoever is providing the solution. It can be a private, public company, whatever. Doesn't make sense if you can't trust it from its root. So, I mean, on the regulation piece and on eIDAS v2, I mean, I'm like super excited actually about eIDAS v2, because for once, everybody in Europe, I mean, the regulator in Europe sit together and say, well, if we want to be above the curve and making sure that we can help European citizens to do digital business in the most efficient manner, where we still acknowledge that the world is becoming more complex, grows super fast, as you were saying, deep fake multiplied by 10, in a couple of years, and now that you have like a deep fake in minutes instead of hours, I think it's going to get worse and worse over time. The world is moving super fast. The fact that we are in countries like in Europe where the regulators say, oh, we'll sit down together and find a way where we can have identity interact with each other is great, is honestly a great story. Now, what is happening with eIDAS v2 is it's a framework that say, okay, we'll define how interoperability can work between the country, and each state will define how they will identify person online. And the level of maturity of doing those first level of identification is very different from one country to another. I'll take one example, and I'm not saying that because I'm Belgian, but in Belgium, everybody has an ID card with a chip and a digital certificate on it since like more than, I never had a card without that, and I don't want to reveal my year, but I mean my age, but kind of like very long time ago. And you can actually do already business online using this ID, and there are some providers that allow you to do that as well. And you have same thing in the Nordics country where those digital schemes are a little bit above the curve, and then some country has taken more time to go there. But what is good is that we see on the market that now every state will have to provide a scheme in order for their citizens to do business online. The main struggle that will happen is, okay, if it's super secure, but no one can use it, then people will use other manner to do business online. They will not rely on this EU eIDAS v2 wallet if it's not convenient enough to actually be used. And in the meantime, everybody will have to accept those EU wallets in order to do business, because that's how it will work. Any large enterprise will have to accept any legitimate EU wallets to be used in order to do business. And that means 27 potential different EU wallets to be managed. So I think,
let me interrupt you
super
here.
Interesting, but the level of challenge that it will bring on the market are as well super interesting as well.
Yeah, just to illustrate what you say for people who are not super savvy about the subject, what you say means that, for instance, a French bank would be obliged to accept the onboarding of Italian clients who have used an Italian digital identity scheme that may be not super reliable. And at the same time, French customers of the same bank would have to provide their identities through the French scheme, more reliable, less cumbersome, and it would create some distortions in terms of user experience, of competitive advantage. It can be a big mess if not well implemented. That's really something super complex to apprehend, because with this framework, if one country says, okay, this is my way of creating digital identities, then the French businesses that are regulated must accept this Italian way of doing things for Italian citizens. But at the same time, if the French government decides to have other constraints in terms of how we create digital identities, then it would be a worse user experience for French citizens to onboard to the same bank. It's really something that can create huge distortions for all the e-commerce business and all the digital economy, basically.
Completely. Plus, I mean, at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is to secure, online business. I think everybody agree on the end goal. The challenge will be how we achieve that, and we need to have a certain level of interoperability. While it is not the private sector that will tell to public states how they have to manage the citizenship of the citizen. So it's going to be a huge middle ground where we make sure that at the end of the day, an identity which is managed, which is coming from a trusted EU wallet in Spain, is actually having the same level of trust than the one which is coming from, I don't know, a EU wallet in Germany or in France or whatsoever. Because if it's not the case, then the whole system will collapse, because if you have fraud when you accept an EU wallet from another country, well, again, going back to the first assertion, all those chain transaction goes back to the original one. If you can't trust the original one, all the other subsequent one will be not trusted. And then the way you actually do business online, it's actually filled unsecure, at some level for some people. So that's why I was saying it is super interesting, because no other country have to challenge that, because Europe is a mix of 27 countries. While in the meantime, it's actually bring a possibility for Europe to really step in the way we secure digital transaction online and be really above the curve compared to what is happening elsewhere around the world. So I think we are ahead of super challenging time. And I think our job, in the private sector, is to say, how can we help the adoption of those solutions? And our job in Docusign is not to say, oh, I want to onboard everybody on my platform. I want people to be able to use whatever solution they have in order to do business on my agreement platform, my intelligent agreement management platform. So that's where we will be. But in the meantime, we need to be able to propose solutions so states can actually easily help their citizens to do business online. So I get the sense of challenge to say, hey, okay, the level of trust from all the 27 countries will be, to be managed. But there are some good things in the regulation. There are some good things, because for once, we have an interoperability model that is actually set to say, how can that work together? And I think that's a great point, the fact that we design by default a way where every 27 country will be interoperable. So for me, that's a little bit ahead the curve compared to what you can see you can see on the market. one thing that is still interesting is how will that eIDAS v2 interact with even other regulation around the world. And that's something where nothing is set in stone, and I'll be interesting to deep dive a little bit more. Can you use a EU wallet to do business like in the US or in LATAM, in APAC or whatsoever? And I think that's if it's become super useful, that will be even more powerful because it will be recognized as a way to actually prove who you are. Because if you think about that, when you have a French passport, well, you don't have to translate it when you go to another country. You just have it and that works. And it's interoperable everywhere, it's recognized. I think we need to reach to the same level of trust when we talk about citizen wallet and reusable identity, where actually everybody will trust that. But yeah, as you were saying, it is still a huge challenge for the industry to find a way to harmonize that and making sure that everybody is happy. And I think the key topic is everybody trusts, because if you don't trust the identity which is coming from someone, then the whole drama is starting.
Yeah, definitely. And today the status is okay. The regulation has passed, and now they are defining the implementation details, and the countries are trying to agree with each other on the technical requirements to set the right level of reliability. But it's very further in the future. I think we'll not see the effect of this regulation before 3 to 5 years. So talking about the present, we have already made a step forward in terms of user experience to create a reusable digital identity, from a video call interaction between two humans to AI-assisted ID verification methods. What is the feedback that you have from your clients who have switched from the human to human to AI? Are they happy? What does it trigger for them? More business? It's more cost efficient? What are the advantages?
It's a good question, actually. Well, it is actually driving more and more business, in the sense of, until now, it was really a trade-off. So much experience and problem that maybe I will stick to paper, I will stick to analogic business, and I will not do that business digitally, because going live is actually too much cumbersome, too much complexity, and I don't trust it, and the level of trust is too high, too low. And actually, depending from one country to another, you can see different mindsets. Usually, US people are super bullish to go fast and digital and think, about security on the same side. While, if you think about that in the German market, it needs to be first super secure before we actually move one step further. So with this move to video identification, to actually AI-assisted, identification, we see a lot of people that were not using that kind of solution that now actually start to use that, and a little bit more even down market. So smaller enterprise, start to actually consider that as a way to do digital business, where they were not there. We also see opportunity and use case where it's still super cumbersome and actually expensive as well to do a video identification. So going in a flow which is providing a much better user experience, it's actually opening a lot of new use cases that are less restrictive than what it used to be. Used to be video identification only for super complex HR onboarding, super complex type of agreement where the consent were to be super bulletproof. And now we see that with the vast majority of the use case we have on the platform, and it's getting even better because if you don't have to think about, I need to manage the level of trust and the level of convenience, and you can actually bring convenience in every single flow, then you don't even care about, what kind of identification I need. You put whatever is the best one in order to move one step further. And I think that will be also part of what the move to more reusable identity with a wallet, with AU wallet is coming down the road. Because, you know, I used to say a video identification is like, you know, half an hour call. I mean, between the time you have to wait for the call, the time which call is happening and so on, sometimes it's taking on an average like 30 minutes. If you do an AI assisted flow, it's like, well, 4 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that. If you do a wallet flow where you reuse your identity with really a good experience, it's like, you know, half a minute. You know, you go like straight to the identification process in half a minute. And I think this is where we had to go. We had to, as professional, we have to provide an experience where the highest level of trust can be conveyed to all our consumers in a half a minute for 85% of the use case. And when we will reach that level of penetration on the market, then it will mean that people can really easily do business online. And I think that's where we want to go. And I think that's where, you know, the market is expecting. Because if you think about that, every new user new consumer that we see on the market, and even the younger generation, they don't wait like, you know, minutes in a flow. They just don't, you know. UX is key. If you want to like convert your customers super efficiently, the conversion rate of your user experience, it is a drastic vector of additional business. So the most efficient is your UX, the most business people will do online. So if you think about that, the way that you move from video identification to what we currently have with AI assisted, well, of course, we drive a lot of additional business just because the UX is so, you know, convenient. And if you go one step further, you will also drive additional business, and, you know, people will be able to do like, you know, trust the way they actually do online transaction management and agreement management. So I think we're getting there. We're really getting there.
Yeah, I think we have improved the UX for a high level of trust, for a high level of reliability in terms of ID verification. But building the wallet is like, I would put it this way, it's like creating a new infrastructure. It's a layer of the digital world, a layer of the internet that is really a layer of trust, and it becomes a core infrastructure. It's no longer a SaaS service or whatever.
Yeah, completely.
It becomes a core infrastructure, and I will be kind of I'm going to tease you, but Docusign has 100 millions of users, and is very well positioned to be a strong contributor of this core infrastructure of the internet. Is it something that you think of a lot of? Is it something that you think of often in your strategy? And also building this wallet, you are the cloud agreement platform. Do you ambition to plug other services on your wallet? Like, I don't know, it might be payment, it might be age verification. There are a lot of use cases. How do you see all this opportunity?
Well, I mean, you're spot on. I think the opportunity is great, but not only for us, like for anybody, but for us, we want to make it dead easy for people to perform agreement transaction online and really like end-to-end agreement. So from the time where you're actually trying to contract with someone till the end of the flow where there is a purchasing or selling agreement that has been signed. From inception and generation of what is the context of the transaction until, you know, you actually consent on something. So it's way beyond, you know, just e-signature, and that's where we're going. And if you think about a platform that can power all those type of agreements, yes, it needs to provide the highest level of trust and identity. What we are not going to do is to replace all the citizenship and all states that are issuing those identities. What we want is to provide the technologies that help people to leverage their identity in a digital world. And then, you know, when you think about that, when you have that, when you can actually leveraging what is existing to provide this level of trust on any transaction and making sure that we can reuse all those identities as much as we can, then the level of service that this platform can provide is limitless. And that's where we want to go, because you're completely right. I mean, we want to make sure then if you need to process easily an agreement online, you can trust Docusign to do the best UX for you and to provide the best solution to do that for you. Either this being, powered by Docusign or powered by one of the partners that Docusign is working with. And that's for us like really important. And that's why, we allow, and we will allow even more in the future, new partner to connect into the platform and provide service to our customer, because we believe that we are aimed to provide much more service than just about like signing a document. It's really about performing the end-to-end transaction and making sure that those transactions can be securely done. So yes, we intend to provide that solution. We intend to be part of the story of reusable identity, of course, in Europe, but like basically everywhere around the world, because we believe that is the way to perform trusted, secure online transaction is by leveraging reusable identity all over again. And as you were saying, we actually have 1 billion, signer on our platform, 1.3 million customers. Of course, we are uniquely positioned to actually help the market to power that kind of solution. But one more time, we are not going to replace, of course, citizenship. We are not, going to the business of owning the identity of everybody. We want to help citizens to do more business online, thanks to the platform we're providing to them.
Yeah, it's very clear. Okay, would you have anything to add on this wallet and reusable identities before I switch to another topic, which I think is super important as well?
Well, nothing much more, but I think we went to it. But I think that is one way to change the way we actually do business online, especially in Europe, but like everywhere around the world. I think you are above like super interesting world where people will have the opportunity to trust more their online transaction and also have much more convenience, because people don't want to use password. People don't want to have like a billion of different accounts everywhere. And while also people want to make sure that when they share their personal information, they still own them. They still decide every time when they are sharing, for what purpose, for what use case, for what service they agree to consent. Because otherwise, the PII of everybody will be shared around the world, and that will be a disaster. The privacy of your data and your personal information are key. It needs to be vetted, through some level of regulation, but through some platform on which you can trust, because this platform don't have any business to actually resell or reuse your personal information, except with your own and single consent. So I think that's the last layer of it, is to make sure it's great that you can reuse identity all over again, but it's still your identity. You still own it as a citizen, and it's super important that anything that you do when you use it, you actually explicitly consent to it and actually explicitly have access to whatever information you are actually sharing.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, control is super important. And I think I would like to close on a topic that is also super important, is diversity, inclusion on these matters, because not everyone is digital savvy, and also we have gender bias. If we want to make things convenient, we will always have to, when we create the first reusable digital identity, either you create it physically at a branch for people who are not super digital savvy, and you go physically you go to the police, for instance, to create your digital identity, or you want to do it online, and you will always have to check a document against your face. And checking your face online, we said it, there are threats like deepfakes, but there is also something that is super important, is the racial bias. we know that algorithms are not able to perform at the same level of reliability face matches for different ethnies. And it's a very important problem to solve. And on this, what we are proposing and we are doing is basically to keep human in the loop, even for face match, even if we say that algorithms progress. We believe that at the creation of the first reusable identity, having a human backup in the loop to ensure that the algorithm perform well is super important. And this means also having super strict protocols in terms of who are the people who are validating the algorithms, how are they trained, what is the level of security in the facilities in which they work, and all this stuff really participates to one, build trust, two, build true inclusivity for all people, all genders, and three, also it's an additional layer of security because, as you said, of course you want to control your own data, but you don't want your data to be stolen and reusable super easily because you have just failed once at the onboarding. You have been hacked once, and then you can be hacked many times because it's much easier to reuse your digital identity.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And one last thing, it's still to say, well, the thing about inclusion is also the fact that it's not acceptable to have a solution of reusable identities that exclude like a certain percentage of the population just because they can't use the service. Or so we, at the end of the day, the role is to make sure that we can provide a solution that encompass as many people as we can, and having a flow and a user experience which manage a level of accessibility of it and making sure that no one is left behind is actually super important, especially when you think about the fact that that's how European citizens ultimately will do business online. So you can't say that, oh, that's okay, it's working 95% of the time. No, it's not okay if 5% of the citizens can't actually do any business online. So I'm with you. So there is two levels in what you are saying. It's number one is making sure that, well, of course, we keep the human in the loop in order to improve the process in terms of trust and to not reject like specifically a certain portion of the population. And I think you're spot on. That's where we need to make sure that whatever we are going to end up using as solution will not exclude a big portion of the population. I think that is something that we need to keep really in mind in order to make it successful.
Cool. I think these are good words to conclude. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have learned a ton of things about ID and how it will impact the digital economy. And let's see you for another session sometime. And thank you, Max.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.